as I said, Brother Andrew, it's been such a while since I've done this. Can't remember. So evening, family. It's lovely to be back again. And I'm carrying on where I was left off. Remember, we were looking at critical theory, and I'm going to continue with that. And really what I want to start doing is looking at some of the solutions to some of the agendas that are being put, or forced, I should say, upon us. We've been looking at the philosophy, we've been looking at the psychology behind critical theory. And remember, that's not the same thing as critical thinking. Critical thinking is where we need to move to, but critical theory is not. It's about the deliberate purpose to destroy, dismantle the family and community using education and the media in order just to control, imprison our mind, body and soul, and making us artificial beings, really, for a hidden agenda outside of our control, but which we collude with unknowingly. And as you can see here from a quote, a critical theory quote is, the purpose is to bring about forced changes to our way of life without our agreement, without our realizing what is happening to us. The ultimate goal is a complete extirpation, that means breakdown, destruction of mankind's inner sense of identity, tearing out of man's innermost soul, and the placement in the vacant space of an artificial, synthetic, pseudo soul. One must force first a change in mankind's self-image. So there is a definition that comes from critical theory itself, and it is us that they are talking about. So I want to look at a powerful solution, I think, today, which is offered through nature. And this solution is so old and so slow that we don't see it, and then we don't learn the lessons from it. So I've called this session today Fangorn Forest and our African roots. So I'm hoping, family, that you'll be able to keep up with me and see the links that I make, and even the links that I don't expressly state, and hope that you can follow with me. So for those of you who don't know, the Ents are a species of being in the Lord of the Rings fantasy world, and they resemble trees. And they're similar to talking trees that are found in folklore around the world, all of which are called sapient trees. Sapient meaning they have transcendental wisdom, intuitive knowledge, and know the ultimate truth of all things. That's what sapient trees are. And just looking at folklore, here's some use of the trees, sapient trees here. So up here we've got the Dondona forest from Greek mythology. It is a forest that exists in northwest Greece, and it says that all the trees in this forest were endowed with the gifts of prophecy, and the trees, which are oaks, not only spoke and delivered oracles while they were living, but even when they were cut down and made into things such as the boat, the Argo boat, for those who love Jason and the Argonauts on his journey in that boat to get the golden fleece. The wood of that boat spoke and warned of approaching calamities. It is said that the rustling leaves of oak trees is said to be the voice of Zeus, who we know is the king of the gods, the god of sky and thunder, and the Greek's equivalent of Amun-Ra, the creator and the universe. In the Torah, we have the burning bush, which speaks to Moses. And then in Egyptian mythology, one of the Egyptian theology stories tells about Osset. He's said to have been encased in a coffin by Set. Set encouraged Osset to climb into a coffin, which he then sealed up. And the story goes on, but the coffin grew into a tree, which is represented by the Jed pillar as we know it, which is symbolic of our upper energy center. And then even in the Islamic hadith, we have a story of the weeping date palm that Muhammad had to console. So there's a lot of stories and myths around the trees, and they're called oracular trees from the word oracles, and they're attributed with the ability to speak to individuals, particularly individuals who are gifted with divination, are able to foresee, foretell, or predict prophecies. And there are many, many stories and myths from around the world, but with trees, they all have wisdom and knowledge of the future as a common theme. So what do we know about these Ents? Well, the word Ent derives from the Old English word for giant, Eaten. And in the fantasy story, they are the ancient shepherds and protectors of the forest, the oldest creatures in Tolkien's Middle Earth. Some of these Ents grew so lazy that they solidified into the trees as we know them. And that was physically and mentally, never to be able to return to their original greatness. Once they became trees, they solidified trees, they couldn't become Ents again. They become solidified and trapped. And in the story of the Lord of the Rings, the Ents go to war against the evil forces of Sauron. And although we know that the Ents are strong, they are actually a weak army because they have no strong young males. Why? Because the Ent wives moved away from the Ents. So it's quite an interesting story that we never told the completeness of it. So the Ent wives have moved away because they like to plant and control things, while the Ents prefer to let things take their own natural course. The male Ents would go and visit the Ent wives, but over time this reduced because the Ent wives moved further and further away. And the Ent wives began to mix with men. And the Ent wives taught men their own form of agriculture. And so they grew comfortable with men. They lived in peace until Sauron took the decision to destroy even their gardens, and they were never heard of again. And just as we have strayed from our original state, our original being, some of it by force, some of it by decision, some of it through the social engineering, we have moved from our original purpose. There becomes that division within ourselves, between the Ent within ourselves and the Ent-wife state within ourselves. And critical theory says of the men, the man of the household must be housebroken to ensure that Junior will grow up with the right social training and attitude. They recognize the need to break the males away so that the young boys would not grow up with the history, with the culture, with the philosophy that the family would instill. But critical theories also say of women, a woman must, however, be conditioned to accept the transition to reality when it comes or sooner. And that's the reality of the new state of being. So we can see this all around us, and we've looked at this before. We see this mirroring in our own lives, and over time, social engineering has driven that wedge between us as men and women, and have encouraged this wedge between us and our children, and particularly as they describe it, orphan our children out to strangers within education. And that's a big piece of moment of insight that I'll be looking at later, the actual impact of schooling as opposed to education. And what does this mean for our children? The critical theorists say again, from the time a child leaves its mother's womb, its every effort is directed towards building, maintaining, and withdrawing into artificial wombs. So we need to recognize that taking ownership of our children is a great piece of work that is underway at the moment. So you could ask, what has the Ents of Fangorn Forest got to do with us, and why is it so important? And as we go through this and look at this, I tell you that you will not look at trees in the same way again. So look here, this is a photo of a place called Pando Forest. Pando is Latin for ice spread, and it's a forest in Utah, and it's shrinking, but it currently still covers 108 acres of a tree called quaking aspens. But what you're actually looking at is one organism, one tree that has self-cloned itself, and it currently stands at 47,000 trees, all genetically identical. And it is said that this forest is 80,000 years old. It is directly connected to that original tree, because as it sends out its roots, a tree grows up from without those roots. So it is the one mass. And that's quite an important thing to remember as I go through today. So what is a forest? It's a complex ecosystem consisting mainly of trees, and these trees buffer the earth and support a whole load of life forms. And a forest is only considered to be a forest if the majority of the trees are over 150 years, 50 years old. So Pando Forest is an incredible forest, and it's really representative of us and who we are as a people. There are, of course, different types of forests for different environments. We've got tropical forests, tropical deciduous forest and tropical rainforest. We've got mountain forest. We've got tropical thorn forest, which grow in very dry land. And we have swamp forest. And all of them have a specific purpose. So as I said, trees are amongst the oldest living organisms on the planet, and they have so much to teach us, but because they move so slowly and we don't look at them as a life form as such, we don't learn from them. Like us, forests have a long history, but unlike us, true forests continue to grow in the way that they were created, and they are closer, I would say, closer to the creator than we probably are today. They live in communities where they protect and look after each other in life and in death, while we now live in societies where we network. And we're going to be looking at the difference between community and network in another session. Forest trees are strict caring parents who look or who think into the future of the next generation and not just at the present. And we spoke about the benefits of this in a session or two before. But also, like us, forests have younger generations of trees being raised by men for man's own purposes, causing greed and ill health amongst the forest community as it stands. So in ancient forests, the same trees, so all beech trees or all oak trees, they share a connected root system, and they exchange nutrients. And this includes helping the suffering trees and the old trees, because together they create a consistent ecosystem that moderates temperature, that stores water, and generates the needed humidity or environment that they need. And under these conditions is how these trees live to be very old. They know that a single tree cannot establish its own microclimate, because it then stands alone at the mercy of the wind and becomes vulnerable to disease and attack. So every tree in life or death is valuable to the community, even the sick trees which they keep nourished. And it's not in the forest's interest to lose even the weakest members, as it would leave gaps in the canopy if these trees were to fall, which would allow the storm winds to get in and risk uprooting other trees. And when a storm hits, it's a matter of life and death for a tree, because for a fully grown tree, the pressure of a storm could be up to 220 tons of pressure on that fully grown tree. And also, too much heat that comes in from the sun would dry out the soil, and all the trees would suffer. So trees know this, that no matter how old the tree, no matter whether it's a sick tree or a strong tree, they all need to work together. And this means that they photosynthesize all at the same time and at the same rate through this exchange of nutrients and sugars through the roots. And when you think about the African village, an African village, the philosophy behind that also acts like a forest where everyone is as important as the other. Hierarchy within African village is not about oppression, but about spiritual liberation. And we see this as we look at ancient forests today. So things I've learned, trees also send messages to each other using chemical and electrical impulses sent through the fungal networks that are around their root tips. And the root tips grow into each other for like trees. And the fungal networks, they're a bit like fiber optic or internet cables. And they say that just 1 teaspoon of forest soil contains many miles of these fungal filaments, which helps to translate the messages between the trees. Some insects are sensitive to the chemical and electrical exchange. And if they find a tree that does not have this network set up, the insects know it's free to attack it. Therefore, a lone tree cannot survive. It may look like it's surviving to us, but remember, trees live to thousands of years old, so we can't necessarily see the harm that's going on because it may take the whole of our lifetime for that to happen. When trees grow together, nutrients and water is optimally divided amongst them so that each tree in that forest community can grow into the best tree it can be. And in the same way, we need to pass messages, not just physically, but mentally and spiritually. The unspoken word that only we as a community understand, because we are now divided and we've fallen apart in this division through our history that's come amongst us. It has now created this continuous enslavement of the past and the present, maintaining us trapped in the world that we find ourselves because we have been engineered through the time of active slavery to be divided.
The old black male versus the young black male. The young black male against the old black male. You must use the dark-skinned slaves versus the light-skinned slaves, and the light-skinned slave versus the dark-skinned slave. You must use the female versus the male, and the male versus the female. You must also have white servants and overseers who distrust all black, but it's necessary that your slaves trust and depend on us. They must love, respect, and trust only us. Gentlemen, these kids are your keys to control them. Use them. Have your wives and children use them. Never miss an opportunity. If used intensely for 1 year, the slaves themselves will remain perpetually distrustful. Thank you, gentlemen.
So we recognize that speech from the Willie Lynch documents where division, divide and conquer is the way to engineer or ensure we continue that division amongst ourselves. But unlike trees, their network underground keeps them bound together. The very nature of mental slavery creates an illusion that we are free, Naim Akbar says, and we feel today that maybe we are free because of opportunities that we have, but we have to question, are we really? So trees not only care for each other, but they also provide protection by sending warning messages to others. And this is ingenious, really. So here's an avenue of acacia trees in the African savannah. And what they do, they pump toxic substances into their leaves to stop giraffes eating them. You will see that the branches are quite high up, and it's the giraffes that can reach them, but they pump this toxic substance into the leaves. And when the giraffe bites into it, it no longer wants to eat it and moves on. But in that biting, the gas from that toxic substance that it pours into the leaves then is released into the air, and it sends a warning to the neighboring acacia trees. And there are lots of other plants that do that. So they look out for each other by this kind of protective measure. And Jonathan Peter Jackson, who's a Black activist, he wrote, "We are quite obviously faced with a need to organise some small defences to the more flagrant abuses of the system now." So that is something that the trees do, looking out for each other. Some trees are clever enough to match the saliva of insects to release in pheromones within the bark that summon beneficial predators to eat those insects. So there are insects that eat other insects. We know trees recognize the saliva of an insect that could cause it harm. It sends out, it releases a pheromone which attracts other insects that will eat those insects there. Incredible. Oak trees, they carry bitter toxic tannins in their bark and their leaves that can kill insects. And incredible as well is that during storms, you notice that all the trees sway in the same direction at the same speed, but each tree springs back at a different speed, and they do this so that they can catch each other and break the fall or the damage that can happen. Again, it shows that it takes a village and a community to raise its young. So this is another fascinating fact. Statistically, each tree raises one offspring sapling to take its place. And when I say that, we see lots of little trees shooting up, but there's generally only one or two that will reach its full life capacity. So for instance, a beech tree is sexually mature at 80 to 150 years. So we've born and died before that tree even becomes mature enough to grow, to produce younger trees. It can grow to be 400 years old, and during its lifetime, it will produce fruit about 60 times, and of those 60 times, it will have a total of about 2 million beech nuts, and roughly 1 or 2 only will develop into fully grown forest trees, and the others become eaten by animals or broken down by fungi, bacteria, and vines, and so on. Now, with young trees, they want to grow very quickly, but the parent tree does not allow this. And the parent tree only allows in 3% of the available sunlight to reach that young tree, to reach the ground. And that's practically nothing, because with only that small amount of sunlight, the young tree can only photosynthesize just enough to keep it from dying. It's not enough fuel, it's not enough sunlight for it to grow upwards at any rate. And any rebellion of the young tree against this strict upbringing is impossible. And because the sapling has no extra energy to sustain any other growth. And this is about strong education. And Malcolm X says, education is the passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today. And the parent tree, it prepares the young for that today, because scientists have determined that the slow growth of a sapling is a prerequisite for that sapling to grow to its full life. And we'll see the ages of some trees later on. And the mother tree, or the parent tree, stays in constant contact with the sapling through the root system by passing sugars and other nutrients. And scientists who study this have registered roots crackling at 220 hertz. And it's recognized that when the sapling's roots are exposed to this crackling, they orient their root tips towards it. So there's a strong relationship underground between parent full-grown trees and the young saplings.
Sorry, sister Lady Adele?
Brother Andrew.
Can I just say, sister, you're very dangerous, sister. I mean, beloved, you're teaching biotechnology and intelligence. What you're doing here, sister, you're combining nature with revolution, with Malcolm X, with spirituality. As you're speaking, sister, I don't mean to cut you off, because I want you to go on that far. I mean, I want everyone to appreciate the level that you're taking us on right now, sister. I've not seen what you've done this. I've not seen any of this. But sister, this is such a beautiful teaching. And I'm thinking, as you're talking, about what the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey said, a people with no knowledge of their history is like a tree with no roots. Is again teaches that nature, that when we can think as a people and use nature as our healing and as our journey and as our Messiah. I mean, this is beautiful. As you're talking, sister, I'm thinking about George Washington Carver, one of the greatest inventors, who said that literally he would leave his hut in the morning, his laboratory in the morning, 5 o'clock every morning, sit down and just meditate in the forest, and he would literally have conversations, mental and spiritual conversations with the forest. So sister, what you're teaching there is going deep. Teach, my queen, teach.
Thank you, Brother Andrew. And that's why it's so important for us to look at all aspects of nature, but natural nature. So what I'm talking about here are real ancient forests. I'm not talking about the forest that was planted down the road, because we'll come to that and how different that is. It's about getting back to those real roots, which is what we need to do also. So carrying on, the parent tree is parenting for the future and for its own death, because when the parent tree dies or becomes ill or falls and crashes to the ground, the light from that is now let in through that canopy, floods down, allowing that sapling to photosynthesize at the rate. Remember, when the canopy is closed, only a small amount of sunlight is let through to really strengthen that trunk. And so when the mother tree or the parent tree then dies and the light comes in, the sapling then photosynthesizes without any restriction. And because it is already strong, because of the slow growth, it will grow straight, regardless of the angle of the sun. So we know plants lean themselves towards the sun. It's natural if you watch plants on a windowsill or even in nature. But because the tree, as a sapling, was protected from sunlight, so it had to grow slowly, that trunk is growing so firm and stiff that when the sunlight eventually comes in, even at an angle, it will not bend. And bear in mind, it can take up to 3 to 10 more years for that sapling still to stand firm. We think it's firm because we can't push it over, but it's a long way from firm. But you see, with sunlight comes the invaders. Vines now find their way, such as the honeysuckle, which winds, just for interest, in a clockwise direction and chokes the tree, strangling it as it grows, but not if it has grown slowly. But well-formed saplings, they can push this all back. They can fight off diseases. They can absorb the shock of storms and winds, where saplings that are curved or have forked trunks are not able to survive that. And for us, understanding your heritage, your roots and your ancestry is an important part of carving out your future. And that slow growth of the tree is all about doing that. So in our everyday life as adults, we must teach our children lessons, even small ones, that will prepare them for life, prepare them to stand alone with the bearing of integrity in the absence of parents, that can hold their own amongst their peer group so that vines can't choke them, and that their family morals and values hold strong when they are under attack. And this is what these young saplings in these traditional forests are doing, and what we need to do as a forest community ourselves. So the process of learning stability and bearing is triggered by painful micro tears that occur when the tree bends and sways in the wind, or when animals are jumping into it or rubbing against it. And where the tree has these small hurts, it strengthens. And that takes energy which is unavailable for growing. So even when it's young, the bending and the straying is, and these little micro hurts and tears are strengthening it upwards. Sorry, Brother Andrew, can you hear echo? Is that me? Brother Andrew? Thank you. But under the care of slow growth, as I said, the trunk strengthens, which reduces the severity or damage that these tears can do, and it speeds up healing. And the thickness and stability of the trunk builds up as a tree responds to these aches and these pains. So too must we, as parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, we must not shy away from the discipline and the hard lessons, because we know it's all done in love and it's done in safety. Society, the nanny state, is teaching our children, our young people, that they're not to experience pain. They're not to learn how to understand pain or how to use it. Instead, any pain that comes along, they say must be medicated or must be counseled against. Our young people are taught to run and hide from pain, which makes them weaker, makes them more vulnerable, and make them victim to the plans of the state. So only us as the parents can give the pain no gain treatment for our young people so they can stand tall. So as the parent tree dies, it continues to play an important part in the ecosystems and the continued growth of the sapling for up to 100 years. It takes that long for the parent tree to decay, and whilst decaying, it is still supporting that sapling. And this is the legacy. It's all about the legacy that we leave behind, the memories, the lessons, the love. And this is including our epigenetic memory. And we've got to be thinking, do we want to break the cycle of trauma, or do we want to and create a new cycle? We have to be thinking about this, because I'm saying to continue the trauma for another generation is just a weakening for each generation that comes past. We need to remember that our ancestors walk with us in the lessons that they have left behind. So ancient forests have been dated as old as 180 million years. Now, some of us argue how long the planet has been in existence, but we know that trees have been there from the beginning, and that there are trees that are almost as old as the beginning itself. Here is a picture of a Daintree forest in Australia. It's a rainforest. It's roughly 460 square miles. To be so old connects it so close to the original starting of life. And think about it, without the invasion of man, such forests could continue undisturbed forever, to live out almost till the end of time. And sometimes I think, where would we have been without invasion and the enslavement of our African ancestors? Just thinking about the created world of Wakanda, we cannot say that that would not have been possible. But we do know that European man does not live in harmony with nature. And this is probably due to the need for survival in the cold northern region, meant that they had to dominate nature. And ancient forests are dying now from deforestation and the introduction of alien species. So our relationship with nature is very different to the European relationship with nature for different reasons. And this is very important that we remember this, particularly when we are talking about ourselves as a community and ourselves as parents. So we think, and a lot of us, and I'm not saying that this is not a good thing to do, I think it is a very good thing to do, is to support the replanting of forests, but they are not the ideal solution, because they cannot, sadly, establish strong, real forests, true forests for the future. And why is that? Well, planted forests such as Christmas trees, they behave a lot like our young people today. Their roots have been irreparably damaged when they've been planted. They're incapable of community or networking, and they are loners, and they suffer from isolation. And you might be thinking, but what about this underground rooting system? And I'll come to that shortly. And because of the planting of these trees, they need pesticides for their protection and growth. And this replicates the division that we find in society that's imposed on us from childhood. When you think about our children, they're imprisoned at a very young age. They're imprisoned by school, they're imprisoned by labels, they're imprisoned in their classes, they've got to be in this class, they're imprisoned by skin color. And that's before they even, hopefully not, get into the real social prison. And so our young people are treated by social pesticide, false news, social media, poor schooling instead of education, and the growth in anxiety. So planting affects a tree for the rest of its life. In its early life, it's kept alive and handled in nurseries, where it often is there for years. Looking at these trees in pots, they're already many years old. As olive trees, they could be already up to 10 years old already. And so they're handled or kept alive in these nurseries before being moved to their final location. Now, in the nursery, and think about nurseries in school, their roots are trimmed to keep them compact. The root ball, which is the main part of the root, for a tree which is 10 feet tall, would generally grow to about 20 foot wide in diameter. So the height of the tree doubled that in diameter for its roots. But in the nursery, its roots are cut back to 20 inches on average. The crown, which is the top of the tree, is trimmed to stop it wilting due to thirst from the root reduction, from that cutting back of the root. And this treatment is not to improve or maintain the health of the tree, but to make it easier, what? To handle. Critical theory to disempower parents and to give a false sense of entitlement to young people. To use education and social media to promote networking and to ensure the complete destruction of the community. Crop the roots is a cropping of our history and our culture, and to trim the crown is to trim the glory and the genius of our young people. And all of this interference makes the young sapling lose its sense of direction underground. They stop growing their roots down into the soil and form flat roots near the surface, severely restricting their ability to find food and water and to link the ends of their roots with the community, with other trees. And this is true for our young people today. But at first, these young trees don't mind because they don't know any different. They're planted in a pot. They eat up all the sugar that they get from the sun because they're in the full sunlight all the time, not knowing that they are building up air in their trunk, which weakens them. And this sounds very similar to the poor food and diet that our young people are having, the poor education that doesn't set our young people free or even heal us. And hence why we're still having issues within our community. Even though our young people are trained as doctors and lawyers, we're still fighting this system.
Lady
our young people,
brothers and sisters, put some ones in the chat room. Put some ones. Lady Adele, you're killing the game. Carry on, carry on. You're killing the game tonight.
So our young people, they are then taught to raise and encouraged to raise themselves without any reference point and without our parents' input, because the state has now become the parent.
Wow.
The thing is, with these trees that are grown in these pots in this way, with cropped roots and cropped crowns, unable now to network down deeply and reach their culture and history and themselves. Woo! Once they reach a certain height, they become dependent on irrigation, they become dependent on pesticide, and they become susceptible to fungal attack and are unbalanced. And we see this with the rise in mental health and ill health and poor economics within our community. Today, our children are no different to these trees that are planted in pots. They may see each other and network through the air like the acacias do, but the roots that determine who they are and who they are going to be is not drawing down from the history, not drawing from the heritage, as there's no connection now with the roots. There's no guidance from that parent tree, no support, no healing, no guidance in the strengthening and during childhood before it rises up to reach the sun. Our history today is being falsified. Our heroes are being vilified. Our men are being demonized and our women are being stigmatized, while the nanny state is being glorified. But that is the purpose of critical theory, to produce young people who raise themselves and create themselves, modeling on the social design. And so we get our families, which are dysfunctional, like the Simpsons here, and we struggle to harmonize our African spirituality with our European mentality.
Morning.
Morning.
sisters, we see our young people continue to lose their way, and we become complicit in that so very easily. They are taught, they're not taught to think deeply. They're not taught to get to know themselves. So they do not know how to become themselves, how to become self-reliant. They live by and rely on labeling and stereotyping, which reinforces who they think they should be. And so it becomes a part of the psyche and society's psyche as well. So the roots are the most important part of the tree. It's the tree equivalent of a brain. And we have seen how trees have learned to evolve, which means that they store experiences. So they have a storage mechanism, how to parent, how to protect each other, how to protect themselves. Roots are in charge of all chemical activity, just as many of our internal processes are also regulated by chemical messages that are organized within the brain. But for roots to be recognized as a brain, neurological processes must be involved, which require electrical impulses. And this happens at not just our root tips in our brain, but the root tips of the tree. Trees also have a memory of time. The thin covering on buds, we don't look at the buds when they're coming out because it's still cold, we still stay in time. But they act as light receptors, and trees wait for a certain number of consecutive warm days, along with a set of hours of daylight before they decide to release the buds to grow into the leaves. And they reverse this process for when they go into hibernation in the winter. So they are very intelligent beings. And we, like them, we need to go back to our roots, our collective brain that must remain connected through our memory. And as Reverend Schock says, oneness with first frequency, oneness with the first thought idea, oneness with the firstborn people, and one with the one. We need to restore our lost spirituality, remain our mentality, and redraw our own map. And as Brother Andrew uses map as an acronym, mission, our aim, and our purpose as one, as a collective body of people. So there are great lessons we can learn from trees. Like I said at the beginning, it's only because they grow so slowly that we do not see them grow. So we cannot learn from them. They are still children as we live and as we die. So family, I just wanted to show you some of the oldest trees that exist in the world today. And like these trees, we have a history that travels back thousands of years, and we need to get back to where we started to move forward again. And like trees, we are a people of community and family with values to raise our young, timed rites of passages. And it takes a village just like it takes a forest so that the young can withstand external obstacles and dangers. Like trees of today, we have also been stolen away from our mothers, our motherland, and planted in a foreign land, having our memory and our history cropped and potted and raised by artificial or surrogate parents who are technically then become our enemy. They are our example trees, they are our inspiration and our teacher for getting back to our original state. We have written within us the beginning of life. We have within us the original breath and the original light. And there is only one place, and Andrew mentioned it already, there is only one person who could possibly end this moment of insight today. And it is the Honourable Marcus Garvey, who says, a people without a knowledge of their past history, origin and culture is like a tree without roots. It is only trees with roots that can attack the damage of critical theory, attack the damage of the Fabian Society, attack the damage of Tavistock Institute. Words of Marcus Garvey, the Honourable Malcolm X, the Honourable Louis Farrakhan, and our great leaders provide us with the roots that we need to get back to who and what we should be. So brothers and sisters, families, Brother Andrew, I've told you, you will not look at trees in the same way again, because every time we look at a tree, it can only but remind us of our history and our culture and our need for community, parenting and protection in order to stand firm and ourselves exist for the thousands of years for which we were designed and created to do. Thank you very much, Brother Andrew.
Brothers and sisters, oh my God, Lady Adele, you were vicious tonight. And brothers, remember, this is not even the main speaker tonight, but look what she's done to the platform. Come on, my brothers and sisters, show some African love, man. Show some ones. Did you not feel that God was in the house with us tonight? Come on, man. Oh my gosh, Lady Adele. That was that was divine teaching there, sister. Absolutely divine teaching. Divine teaching. And as you were speaking, sister, this video came to mind. And it reminded me of our African sisters, our sisters, when they open their natural hair, beloved. Just watch this, man. Tell me this. Jeez. That's the African glory, man. Wow. That is us. That is us in our glory. And we're let loose. Oh my God. Lady Adele, we thank you again. I mean, the chat room is on fire right now. The chat room is on fire. Divine intelligence. Sister Lady Adele. And you know what, brothers and sisters? We know that Dr. Mark Richards is waiting in the background. And you know, brothers and sisters, it shows us that our life is ready now. As I said, brothers and sisters, we've got this beautiful sister with us today. And I'm hoping the internet don't go this time. It's only a short 5-minute talk we're going to have. But I mean, Sister Dr. Elaine Ferguson, one of the great physicians and healers in North America. Sister, how are you doing, my queen?
I am I'm wonderful right now after hearing my sister speak. I have to drop the mic for her. I think it's just awesome. Thank you. And thank you, my brother. I mean, I'm speechless. I really wish I didn't have to speak now because it's so awesome what she said and I'm so full. So please bear with me. I will do my best.
But my queen, I mean, I'm going to ask you in a second, how does your teaching, because you teach something very similar, sister, in terms of nature's power and the power of the human body. So as Sister Lady Adele was speaking, I'm thinking, oh my God, I know you must be taking it onto a new level in your mind.
I'm blown away. I'm just blown away because yes, our words are from the same place. She's speaking about trees. I speak about the human body in the exact same way. So I am really happy that I came on after her, because this is how spirit works. I had terrible internet issues before, and now it's working perfectly. So that was a divine intervention as far as I'm concerned, because her very first slide about self-image speaks specifically to what I wanted to share with our family on the UK, on the other side and around the globe tonight, about our health and well-being and our healing. Everything she said, I would say it applies directly to our health as human beings, to our history as an African people. And by that I mean our ancestors, dating back to 20,000, if not longer, years ago, knew first and foremost we're divine beings, that we are not human beings. And if we don't have that image, that understanding, we are at risk of harm, especially, particularly in the way that our sister shared. So my work has been over the last almost 30 years, in terms of my holistic approach to healing, has been to share the truth as I've learned it over the last 40 years of my career. When I was in medical school at Duke University in North Carolina, I was in awe of the human body. I was in awe to the extent that it is such a magnificent and miraculous creation. That's not how I was taught in medical school, because I was taught it's a machine. It's not. It is a dynamic temple, an organism that was created for the divine to be embodied in this realm. And our bodies are capable of so many wonderful things that we're not aware of. We're capable, actually, we are a walking miracle in and of itself, but we were designed and created to be healthy. Optimal health and well-being is our natural state, not disease. The word disease speaks to the fact that our bodies and our minds and our spirit are designed to function with ease. And when we are out of ease in terms of our functioning, be it mentally, emotionally, physically, that is when we experience dis-ease, out of function, functioning improperly. So my work has been, especially over the last decade, to help my clients and my patients and my readers, my audience, to understand that they have the innate capacity to be healthy. And it does not matter. It doesn't matter what you've experienced. It doesn't matter what your condition is. When we create the right environment internally, in terms of how we think, how we feel, how we identify ourselves, and how we treat our bodies, minds, and spirits, we can create health. Our family history does not matter. We know now, in terms of Western science, we were taught that our family history, our genetic history determines everything. It does not. That our DNA is the king of the cells, and it's not. Our DNA responds to our environment. So when we create a healthy environment, our cells function in a healthy manner. When we create a diseased environment, not only in terms of physical issues, but mental. That's why we have to emancipate ourselves from this mental slavery and this notion that we are slaves, and all of those terms that I don't like to use, but that we're less than the divinity that we are. That's the work that I'm doing right now, to help our people understand the truth. And once we regain our divinity in terms of our consciousness, nothing's impossible to us. All we have to do is look at our history in terms of what our ancestors were capable of creating when they had the environment along the Nile Valley and across the African continent, as well as in other parts of the world, to create cultures and civilizations that were sustainable, that respected nature, that lived in harmony with nature. One thing I will add, Brother Andrew, that I think is important to share with our family, especially when we talk about epigenetics and our inheritance of the trauma of slavery, we also have inherited the capacity to survive. we also have inherited the strength of our ancestors. So it's not just the trauma. We have to put it in balance to remember that even more so than the trauma, they overcame that trauma. And I often share with my friends and my families when they're having difficult times, particularly through the last year. My ancestors, our ancestors survived at the bottom of a slave ship. And if they could survive that, we can survive this. So I think, yes, we have to put it in perspective.
Teach.
Dr. My thank you. My dear brother, Reverend Shock, talks about, and I'm sorry, I can't recall the brother who shared this. One generation can change everything. When we change our consciousness, we change our world, we change our health, we change our well-being, we change our families, we change our culture, and we can do this. And one of the things I do want to also share that I think is important for us to understand that's unique to us as human beings, we are connected in consciousness. And you may have talked about this before. So just because we are separate physically, we are connected in consciousness physically on the realm of thought. So we don't have to be together physically to create these new ways of being as we work together. We can do this across the globe. We don't have to be in one place at this point, thanks to the internet and to other means of communication. So coming on the end of what our sister shared, I would say one of the most important things we can do is to use social media to our advantage to help promote healing and well-being through these mechanisms. The mechanism itself is not the issue, it's how it's being used. So if we use it in a positive way, as you're already doing, but I'm just saying even more so, we can amplify that and help to bring forth the healing and the well-being and the elevation of our people that our children need, that our adults need, and we all need in one way or another, because we are living.
Pause there 1 second, sis. Sister Prudential, I mean, people have been typing as you've been speaking, sister, by the way. But Sister Prue says, Brother Andrew, and she's put in capital letters, please bring Dr. Elaine back to this platform. And then Brother Leonard said, I'll second that. Brothers and sisters, that's the whole reason why she's on tonight. This is not really her night. This is really just an introduction, because I said to her, I knew that as soon as she started speaking, I knew, especially on this platform, the Hidden Truth platform, we are going to connect with her on another level. Just what Lady Adele was just speaking about, the trees interconnecting under the ground. And as Sister was saying, we connect mentally and spiritually already. Sister, we're going to be doing a whole show where you're going to be the keynote speaker, sister. And as you know, tonight was really just to introduce you to the platform, sister. And it's amazing. So, brothers and sisters, sister, what part of America are you based in?
I live near Chicago, Illinois. This is where I've practiced all of my career, not most, all of it. I'm in the Midwest. I'm in the heartland of the United States. Fantastic. And I just want to say to you, Brother Andrew, thank you so much for this opportunity and for all the work that you do. You know, I love Jamaica, and you're a brother from another mother. I'm so grateful to Reverend Shock for connecting us. So thank you.
No, thank you, my queen. And brothers and sisters, the date will be released soon. We're just in negotiations behind the scenes. Once that date is locked down, we're going to be introducing Sister Elaine, Dr. Elaine Ferguson, forgive me, sister, Dr. Elaine Ferguson onto this platform. And we're going to be able to drink the knowledge, wisdom. I think the sister has a whole movement dealing with how to heal racism. Oh my God. This is going to be amazing. We've got so many themes we're going to be choosing from, and we're going to be students to this sister here in the UK and around the world. But we've got so many great sessions lined up. So, sister, we thank you again. We've bowed to you. Sister, in 30 seconds, please, what's your closing words to the brothers and sisters today? Before we bring on our main speaker, what's your closing words to us right on this platform, sister?
My closing words to our family, to my family, is take care of yourself. make a decision to take charge of your health and well-being. You don't need to wait on a doctor or a nurse practitioner. How you live and how you take care of yourself and how you love and honor your precious being are the most important keys to your health.
Wow. Brothers and sisters, come on. If you felt our sister, tell the sister in the platform, put some braps, put some ones, put some lick shot from Babylon, put some blows and skirts. Make the sister know that heaven lies at the foot of a woman, because we've just experienced heaven tonight with our beautiful queen. Don't worry, brothers. I know some of you, Sister Dr. Elaine, you've got to come back on the platform, because my life ain't gonna be worth living if you don't. I'm calling security tonight. I need 24 hours, 7 days a week security until you come back. Sister, we love you so much, my queen. Stay strong. And we can't wait for you to come back on the platform. And the whole show's gonna be dedicated to you, my queen. So you can lay down the philosophy and the teachings according to Dr. Elaine Ferguson. We thank you, sister. Stay strong.
Thank you, my brother. You too. My pleasure.
Brothers and sisters, isn't life beautiful? Isn't life beautiful? We're now leading up to the main part of the program. Dr. Mark Richards is coming on definitely very soon after this little breakdown. Life is indeed beautiful. Dr. Ferguson is with us, and we're just feeling like an angel has just spread some angel dust on us, and we're ready to go to work. Dr. Elaine Ferguson's with us, brothers. Brothers, you're tuned into the Investigator Hidden Truth platform, the platform of Vital. Remember, you must unlearn what you have learned. The Dr. Ferguson's touched on that already, man. It's about renewing the mind. And in the UK, as you know, we have our own school. So not only do we run this platform, but the help that you give Brother Andrew Mohammed and the Hidden Truth team goes on to help this next generation of investigators, brothers and sisters. So literally, we are now raising up the health. In my academy last Saturday, we ran a program called Fit to Lead. We do it once every half term, a Fit to Lead program whereby we take our next generation, man, and we have a physical education day with them, brothers and sisters. We take them from out of their bedrooms, out of their computers, off their phones, no phones allowed. And we show these young gods and goddesses the joy of reconnecting with nature again. Yeah. Our Fit to Lead program. Yeah. And we even have dance classes for our youth. Look at our young ones, brothers and sisters. Come on, China. So you see that, brothers and sisters? Yes, we're moving. We're getting our youth. That's what we're doing, brothers and sisters. We're getting our youth today, man. Yeah, so this is just one of our classes we do, our Keep Fit. And as I said, Brother Leonard, who's on the platform as well, he's one of the trustees of our academy. And if you'd like to help us in any way, please, you can support us by setting up a monthly standing order, and you see the young people for yourselves there. Don't worry, Dr. Mark Richards is coming up next. The main speaker tonight is coming up next. But just to let you know, okay, that we have next week's show is going to be crazy. We've got it's going to be dealing with Black consciousness, Pan-Africanism, and decoloniality, okay? And this is going to be, we're linking up with Africa next Tuesday, brothers. Please spread the word. That's what we're saying to you. Spread the word. Get the families in. We've got Baba Buntu, who's one of the top activist scholars, writers, and researchers in South Africa. I've worked with this brother in Norway many, many years ago. And now he's going to be on the platform with us, okay, brothers and sisters? Black consciousness will be next week's event, Pan-Africanism and decoloniality, okay? All the way from South Africa, Baba Buntu. Coming up soon will be this brother here.
Peace, family. My name is Ron Spears. I'm a spoken word artist and entrepreneur out of Detroit, Michigan, over in the States. I'm so looking forward to participating on the Hidden Truth show with Brother Andrew Muhammad. This is going to be an exciting show. We're going to talk about rites of passage, African rites of passage, the real deal. Okay? Malcolm X once said that armed with the knowledge of our past, we can with confidence charter a course for our future. I'm going to talk about my curriculum. I'm going to talk about my rites of passage program. And guess what? We even take our kids to Africa each year. This is going to be an exciting time. I'm going to talk all about it on the show. I can't wait to talk with you guys. Again, The Hidden Truth with Brother Andrew Muhammad. Your boy Ron Spears is going to be in the house. Be there.
Yeah, so we're linking up with Detroit. That's going to be in 2 weeks' time. We talk about where are our missing children going. Well, yes, we can say that, but where's the rites of passage program for them? Yeah, we're going to be doing a show on that, brothers and sisters. I'm telling you now, I'm not going to rest my head on a pillar until we have a national rites of passage for our youth. We can't allow the streets to bring them up, man. How do they become men and women today? Don't forget, if you want this information, my WhatsApp number to give is 07863 543 785. That's 07863 543 785. You get the program. Yes, from tomorrow, brothers and sisters, the recording of tonight will be on tomorrow, online tomorrow, okay, brothers and sisters? So you can get that. So you can watch this whole presentation again. Doctor, and if brothers and sisters, you see the work that we're doing, if you'd like to donate, remember, I do this show free of charge, brothers and sisters, but you see the work that goes on behind the scenes. If you'd like to help Brother Andrew Muhammad, yeah, please go to our website, go to our presentation page. We got all of our videos, and there's a donate button. There's a donate button right there in the corner. You can donate whatever you'd like to help us put this show and keep it free of charge, brothers and sisters. Let's keep the show free of charge. So help us. And I want to thank so many of you who have literally, I've seen so many of you donating to that platform without me even having to ask. I thank you, brothers and sisters, because this work does take a lot of work to put on one show. And let's not forget, we need to support Black businesses. So we're going to do this quickly, and then Dr. Mark Richards will be on the show. So remember, support Black businesses, brothers and sisters. Marshall and Brown and the Caribbean Small Box first. Yeah, we got to support. This is a company that literally does door-to-door delivery of our foods. So make sure we all do our deliveries through that company. First Fruit, brothers and sisters. Make sure we support. It's a national company and they deliver. Let's buy our own food from our own people that support Brother Andrew Muhammad. Support Black businesses, brothers and sisters.
Allume tes sensations.
Marshall and Brown have created a wonderful range of natural exotic infusions, which are bursting with colours and delicious tropical flavours. Made with 100% natural ingredients and simply bursting with flavour, every single cup gives off a mouth-watering aroma, enveloping all the senses. The 8 infusions are versatile. They can be enjoyed hot or cold, winter and summer, night or day. Exquisite and beautiful packaging, tropical fruit and herbal infusions for every occasion. These teas really dive into a world bursting with colours and delicious flavours, with our fabulously tasty and imaginative range of fruit and herbal teas.
Merci, Marshall and Brown.
Marshall and Brown, a natural tropical taste.
Greetings, I'm Cassie Stevens, the author of A Guide to Life, African Proverbs Made Relevant Today. I've written this book because I truly do believe the key to the journey of life is to seek the knowledge of those who've experienced life before us, particularly our elders throughout time and history have passed down many wise words and teachings. So within this book you'll find 30 proverbs, and alongside those 30 proverbs you'll find 30 lessons that cover an array of different themes. This modern day breakdown is for you to apply these gems of wisdom into your path and most importantly pass on to the next generation also. So if you're seeking a change, if you're feeling a bit lost on your journey, you need some answers, or you just want something good to read, then I advise you purchase this book right now. This is something I've been working on for the past year and has taught me so much, and I just pray that these words can help to educate, inspire, heal, and most importantly support you on your life's journey as it has mine. If you would like to read this book, you can purchase via my website www.kessiestephen.com or via Amazon, A Guide to Life by Kessie Stephen. Thank you. Greetings.
These are all great Black-owned businesses, brothers and sisters.
Hello, my name is Teresa Hatchett, and I am a trustee of the Global African Congress. We're having an event called Climate Justice. You can register for this event on Eventbrite. It's on the 5th of June, starting at 12 noon. Be a part of the rebirth, be a part of the restoration, and be a part of the reparation. We'd love to see you. Please register and come and attend the 5th of June Climate Justice event being organised by Global African Congress. Thank you. Love to see you there.
And don't forget, tonight after the show, you can go to Leo Marshall's Melanin podcast. Yep, details are online right there. So after tonight's show, see, Tuesday night is going to be your night, brothers and sisters. Your night is Tuesday night. And we're back with the Investigator on this coming Saturday. I'm going to show you some more details. There's also going to be a fundraiser. Chef Kevin, who's the chef of on this platform, those of you that came to, he's been doing a massive fundraiser. I'm going to show you details of that after Dr. Mark Richards. Brothers and sisters, are you okay? Let me know if you're out. Look, man, we've not even had our main speaker yet. Let me know if you're okay. Let me know, are you drinking in the wisdom tonight? You've had Dr. Elaine dropping wisdom. You've Lady Ma'at dropping wisdom. You had Brother Quacker all the way from Ghana dropping wisdom. You had our sister, Charmaine Simpson. All of this in one night. One night, brothers and sisters, one night. And now we got the main speaker himself, Dr. Mark Richards. Are you with us, King? Are you with us, my King? Very patiently. Oh, look at that.
Greetings.
Brother, I can see you're not playing tonight, man. You're coming G. You're coming G'd up, man.
What can I say? What can I say, Brother Andrew? I'm blessed to be here, and I don't know how I'm going to follow these powerful
Brother Mark, did you hear that wisdom being dropped?
I was completely locked in, completely absorbed. I mean, Lady Adele took us to the root.
Oh, listen to the term.
The actual root.
To the root.
And I don't know how, because now we're going to have to go out to outer space, and somehow we're going to have our feet on the ground and our heads in the clouds, literally. So that's the kind of people we are.
Come on, King.
Also, brother Kwaku. I mean, I've worked with him for many years. I commend what he's doing and has done in the community. Has done and is doing across the community, and all the other speakers. I'm looking forward to the guest speakers. So again, I'm just blessed to be here, Brother Andrew, and thanks for inviting me.
No, brother, we've been waiting for this one tonight, my brother. We've been waiting for this tonight, and you know what, brother? We can't thank you enough for being who you are, brother, and sharing your great wisdom, because many people that when they reach to your stature in life, okay, they seem to forget who they are. But to see that you're right on board, my King, you're right on board. You're not bouncing, you're not scuffling, you're not shuffling, you're not scratching where you don't itch. You're an upright black man who hasn't forgotten his roots, but you're a professional. You dedicate yourself to your profession, okay, brother? But you do it in conjunction with your mission and your aim and your purpose of liberation theology, brother. We thank you, my King. Thank you on all levels, brother.
Well, thank you, Brother Andrew. I mean, thank you for your kind words. I'm blessed. All I can say is I can only do what I do if I'm me. There's sometimes they say it's always better to be a first-rate you than a second-rate somebody else, or to emulate somebody else, right? So the bottom line is the more you know yourself, the more you can achieve. And so I couldn't do one without the other, if that makes sense.
Yes.
That's just how it is. I wouldn't achieve what I do in science if I didn't know who I was as a person and where I'm coming from, because that's what gives you your strength. That's what makes you unique. That's what gives you something else to bring to the table. So Absolutely. I would encourage everyone, whatever field they go into, try wherever you can to remain your authentic self in your way. Well, okay, I suppose I should get to it really.
It's all yours, King.
Like I said, it's I'm going to try and share my screen if that's okay.
Yeah, just test that your sharing facility. Oh, that's brilliant, brother. Brother, you go, King, go.
Okay. Well, thank you. First of all, thank you for the audience for your patience. As Andrew said, I'm Dr. Mark Richards. I can hear a slight echo, but I'm not sure whether it's coming from me or from somewhere else.
It sounds clear to me, King. Sounds clear.
Okay, then it might be me. Okay, one moment. Apologies for this.
No worries, brother. You've been patient with us, King.
Okay, right. I can hear myself better now. So, well, where do we start? Firstly, I am Mark Richards. I'm also a DJ chemist with that African K in there, emanating from Kemet, from that whole notion of your African self. And there's all the various contact details and socials and so on. Again, it's I don't believe in coincidences, but it's fortuitous that I start with a quote from Marcus Garvey. It was the quote that I mentioned last time, but it's just to remind us again, because it was an instruction to parents at the time to teach the higher developments of science to your children. For in science and religion lies our only hope to withstand the evil designs of modern materialism. And, you know, if we wonder why he maybe said that, he goes on to say that the Negro once occupied a high position in the world, scientifically, artistically, and commercially. It's quite, again, it's fortunate, you know, again, it's the 100th anniversary of Tulsa, Oklahoma, and commercially, we were dominating. But in the balancing of the great scale of evolution, we lost our place and someone other than ourselves occupies the stand we once held. And this was it back in 1925. And Garvey then went on to say that within 100 years, we would lay the foundations to, you know, effectively reposition ourselves to our rightful place, so to speak. And we are within that time now, and it feels like it's in that time. It feels like we're laying the foundations. Not to say everything would be achieved within a short space of time, but it feels like we're actually there's a if you like a collective consciousness that is moving towards realizing we've got to do for self, and when we do, we will excel. So I'm also going to quote Tesla. Now, I mentioned Tesla last time, and you may think, oh, he's just some scientist. Well, actually, no, Tesla is a little bit more different than that. He was a prolific inventor, and he wasn't what I would say was part of the system as such. In fact, most of his patents, most of his inventions were stolen. I mean, literally stolen. In fact, he even said, you know, he said, I care not that they've stolen my ideas, but more the fact that they don't have any ideas of their own. But what did he say about the universe? And this is important. He said, if you want to know the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Okay? Now, Tesla, the very electricity that we're using is because of Tesla. He developed and invented the alternating current, which most of us run on. And the thing why you know that Tesla is not necessarily mainstream is because he's not taught. He's not taught in schools. He's not taught, even on a physics degree at university, you're not taught specifically about Tesla. Quite interesting that, how things can be hidden. But anyway, the universe, we're going to start from the universe, which is why I said, Lady Mark Adele made a great presentation around trees and the fact that the roots are important for communication. And so at the same time, we also have to think about our connection with the universe as a whole. And that image there is an image by a satellite, and it's basically called the cosmic microwave background image. And it's basically a map of the entire universe. Those little dots there are galaxies and superclusters that contain billions of stars. So you can see how vast the universe is. And the thing about the universe, what they discovered, what the science tells you, is that the universe is expanding with time. It is expanding, but not only is it expanding, it's accelerating. So that means things are getting further apart at a faster rate. And the thing is, they couldn't explain where this energy came from that can still force the universe to be expanding at this rate. And so often in science, when they're not sure what it is, they call it dark or black or something like that. So it's called dark energy. Okay, this is dark energy, which scientists know very little about, but they believe it's responsible for causing this acceleration. And when we think about the universe, let's just break down the etymology of the word. Uni means one, okay? Like a unicycle has one wheel. Unit is one. And verse, one verse. That's what the universe means. And what is a verse? According to the dictionary, it's writing that is arranged in short lines with a regular rhythm. So it's not just any old words or any old, it's regular rhythm. In other words,
come on, Dr. Mark, you got me vibrating right now. Teach, my king.
Okay, well, I mean, this is what it says. We maybe not have thought about it. So we're really talking about one song, one rhythm, one tempo, one vibrational frequency. And it now turns out that the universe itself has a sound. Okay, it has a sound, not a sound that you can hear, but you can pick up the sound from the outer edges of the universe, and that's partly why they know about its shape. So there's a picture by a depiction by NASA, which tries to look at the evolution of the universe. I'll see if I can quickly bring the pointer up. Okay, so what it says is, according to the scientific theories, is that the Big Bang occurred around 14.5 billion years ago. And over time, so you can think of this red arrow as time, the universe has been expanding and expanding and expanding until where we are today, which is why we see this shape here. But you see, if it was just expanding at a normal rate, then it would just be like linear. But you can see it's going up and up like an exponential. It's accelerating, and that's why they know, that it's expanding. So the question is, what is causing this shape? But the funny thing is that this shape looks very much like many instruments, a trumpet, for example. So we can see that sound and shape are very much intertwined. Just like, for example, when you listen to, let's say, the C note on a guitar, and then you listen to a C note on a piano, it still sounds like the C note, but you can tell a guitar from a piano, because the shape of the instrument affects the sound, the sound that you hear, or if you like, the tone of the sound. But at the fundamental level, it's still vibrating at the same frequency, that C note. So before we really get deep into it, I'm afraid we're going to have to get a few definitions in, just so we know what we're talking about. And so the first thing I want to talk about is waves themselves. General, what are waves? We hear about waves, and I've given you some examples of waves you may have heard of, obviously know of. Sound waves, light waves, for example, water waves. Of course, we've heard of ocean waves. What is the connection between all these different types of waves? Even electromagnetic waves, brain waves. And even when you wave your hand, why is that a wave? Well, it turns out that waves can be described by this diagram on the right, where it goes, you've got your peaks and your troughs. So let's take something like the hand wave. If I was to map my position, the position of my hand, over time, then you would see that my hand would be low at one point and then high at another point, then low and high. And so you could map it as this wave. It's called a sine wave, because if you remember at school, the sine function or the sine wave gives you this shape. So now we know what a wave is, and all of these different types of waves can be described in that way. In other words, it's something that changes periodically over time or over space. Now, in terms of how we just categorize the wave, it has an amplitude. So that's like the intensity of the wave. And then it has a wavelength, which is basically the length of one full cycle. But then you have something called the frequency, where you now take a fixed unit of time, let's say, and you say, how many cycles can you fit into that unit of time? And the unit of time is 1 second normally, and it's called a hertz, okay? So in other words, the wave in the bottom picture now, if we look at the bottom graph, it only has one cycle in that 1 second, so it would be 1 hertz. If you double the frequency, then you've got 2 cycles, but then the wavelength becomes shorter. And then you double it again, the wavelengths become shorter and shorter. So in other words, the higher the frequency, the shorter the wavelength, okay? And what are waves in themselves? Well, waves, they transport energy and information throughout space and time, okay? That's what they do. They transport energy from one place to another over a particular period of time. So I'm going to give you maybe a couple of simple examples. You have this particular type of wave, which is called a transverse wave. One moment. Right, so you've got a transverse wave. And so if you look at, you remember these with a slinky or whatever they call it. If you look at how the hand moves up and down, but the wave moves from left to right. And if the hand moves faster, the wave moves faster. So in other words, the hand is moving at right angles to the direction of the wave. And light and electromagnetic radiation, that's how it operates, at right angles. And you could move it sort of left to right, if you like, instead of up and down. Sorry, not left to right, backwards and forwards, or however, well, left to right, apologies. But the longitudinal wave, this is where the hand, in this example, goes back and forth, and the wave moves from left to right. So in other words, the hand is moving in the same direction as the wave. And the vibration is the movement of the hand, okay? So the hand is vibrating and it's creating a wave, and the energy is moving and being transported along the path to the final destination. That's how waves work. And basically hopefully you can start to see why lots of things, well, everything vibrates to some extent. So waves are being created in lots of different ways. Just to give you an example of an ocean wave, and this time, so you can see the waves are moving from left to right. But this time, if you look at the individual particles, they're just moving in a circle. They're not really moving with the whole wave across. So in other words, the energy is being passed from one particle to another in a particular way, and it creates this energy. Okay, so that's basically how waves work. And you can have just another observation, as you get lower down, you don't really see much movement. So waves can often be, you know, their surface level for the ocean. Now let's talk about sound in a bit more detail. Now sound, you have a transmitter and a receiver, and a transmitter could be, it could be a drum, which I've put there, or it could be a speaker. It could be many different things, your voice, and then your receiver, your ear, for example. But if you look at the diagram, what's happening is it's vibrating at a certain frequency. And then if you look at those particles, it's like they're passing energy to each other, which is why sound needs a medium in which to travel. So for you to hear, okay, it needs to be travel. You need to hear it in air or something. It needs something to pass this energy on through, so to speak. So the sound is moving from left to right, and you can see the particles are just passing this energy along. And then that reaches the receiver. And of course, in the ear, you have those small hair follicles which are vibrating at a particular frequency to pick up those different frequencies of which is created by the vibration. Now, I've given you an example. This is just one, if you like, one vibration. Obviously, if you combine them, then it starts to get more complicated. Just a quick aside, really. Now, antennas can be transmitters and receivers, okay? And they've done a lot of work in terms of what are the most efficient antennas. And it turns out that the spiral antenna, the spiral antenna is known as frequency independent. That means it picks up all frequencies, or a very broad range of frequencies compared to other antennas. And it makes the best transmitters and receivers. Now, I want you to just think about that, because we have natural spiral antennas on our head. And often we may not necessarily realize what they can do and what they can pick up, and also what happens when we don't necessarily take that into account. So again, your hair is a natural spiral antenna. This was created by God, often by nature. So again, spiral antennas, just the shape itself, science itself tells you. And in fact, this spiral antenna that I've got there, it's by NASA, it says, is a key component to keeping constant communication with astronauts on the International Space Station. They use spiral antennas because they travel further and pick up more frequencies. So let's just talk a little bit about when you combine waves now, because obviously waves do not exist in isolation. They combine in particular ways. So there are two extremes, if you like, when they can interfere in a way such that the interference is known as destructive. So I try and stop it at a right point, not quite there, but somewhere like close, like there maybe. But you can see now on the bottom right-hand picture, the blue and the green, they're out of phase. And so the resulting red wave, it's pretty low, and you can almost make it flat if you get them exactly out of phase, okay? On the other hand, you can have them in such a way that they constructively interfere. So when they're perfectly in phase, then you get these huge waves, which reinforces. And the thing what is, as I said, waves are energy carriers. And it turns out that the energy that it carries is proportional to the square of the amplitude of the wave. What that means is, if you double the amplitude, which we've kind of done here, it will increase by 4 times the energy. So if you think of something like a tsunami, let's say in a normal ocean, the waves might be 1 meter high. And then later on, let's say with a tsunami, they become 10 meters high. The amount of energy would be 10 squared, which would be 100 times more, 100 times greater. So the point is, when waves are in phase and in sync and combine, you can maximize the effect much greater than you could individually. And it kind of, in a way, in a different kind of way, is similar to the analogy that Lady Adele pointed out, that a tree in isolation cannot survive as much without being reinforced to get, with more support. Like they say, sometimes they say 2 minds is better than 1. Well, this is literally 2. You can maximize your output. So imagine if you combine that many times, then you can start to see what sorts of energies we can create. Okay, I'm just going to say a quick word on resonance, because resonance is important. Resonance is the sound that's produced when an object vibrates at the same rate as sound waves from another object. So you've got 2 objects, they're not connected physically, but they're vibrating at the same rate. And when that happens, they resonate together. Okay, I'll give you a simple example. Let's say you're pushing a swing, and you push the swing, you're pushing your child or whoever, your friend, whoever, on the swing. You know that as the swing comes back, you push again and you push a bit more, but you're pushing at a particular time. You don't push the swing when the swing's near the top and about to come back down. You push it at the right time, and you just keep giving it that little bit more and more energy each time, such that you now are resonating with the motion of the swing. Or another example might be in the bath. If you fill the bath, let's say, to 3/4, if you just splash your hand around, it will make some splashes and some waves. But if you gently stroke the water so that it starts to go back and forth, eventually you can build it so it just sloshes back and forth right outside the bath. That's resonance. In other words, you're resonating with the natural frequency of the water, for example. So resonance is an important key thing in terms of waves and how you interact with waves. One thing I want to say, we may not have realized it, sound is much more important than we might think. You can't live without sound. You're saying, well, what do you mean? You have never been, maybe in the womb potentially, but other than that, you have not been in a situation where there is absolutely no sound. Maybe if you have visited what's known as an anechoic chamber, and where they basically deaden all sound. But they do say that if you stay in an anechoic chamber for more than 45 minutes, you will go insane. You start to...
This is amazing, Doctor. Teach, bro. I never knew this.
Well, you will start to go insane. You will start to hear your own blood vessels running through its veins.
Wow.
You'll hear everything. You'll hear your body. You'll hear things that you've never heard before on your own person, even if you try not to make any sound at all. So we are immersed in sound. We are immersed in sound waves, just like air, and just like water is part of our life force. So we've got to pay a bit more attention to sound than we probably think. So the other thing is, what about the sound that we can see? Sorry, the light that we can't see and the sound that we can't hear. So in terms of light, we know that we have a visible range. Okay, I've put it in terms of wavelengths, and it's between around 300 nanometers, which is 300 billionths of a meter. That's how short the wavelength of light is, to about 800 billionths of a meter. Okay, but then outside of that, we know that there's light that exists that we can't see. So example, there's ultraviolet light, which we can't see, but we know it's there. And there's also infrared light. And some animals see in ultraviolet or in infrared, for example. But there's also light even outside of that. Things like microwaves, radio waves, X-rays, etc. They're all part of the large spectrum of light. So if you look at this diagram right here, this little slither, this little looks multicolored, that is the light that we see, compared to all of that on the up and down on the left-hand side that we don't see. Okay, so if we're going to just communicate with just our eyes, or if we're going to shape our entire world just on what we see, then we are missing out on all of this information and energy which is outside of our visible range. And in a similar way, we have an audible range. And the audible range in terms of hertz is from 20 hertz. Remember, that was cycles per second. So it's like 20 cycles per second to about 20,000 cycles per second, which is this on. Now, if you look at this, this axis here, so this across here is all that we can see. Oh, sorry, here. So outside of that is a huge amount. And these axes, they go up in orders of magnitude. They're not just going up linearly, just in case for those who want to know a bit more detail. So it's a huge range, but we only hear a very small section of those frequencies that are all around us in all different ways. Okay. So we're going to look at a few applications of sound outside of music. One of them you probably, you're familiar with without maybe thinking as deeply about it, which is ultrasound. Ultrasound scan. Anybody who's been pregnant, expecting, they've been for a scan, call it a scan. You get maybe a picture like this, and to know that the baby's healthy and so on. This was all done through sound. There was no intrusive probes or anything like that. Just sound alone can pick up the image, but it's ultrasound. That means it's outside of our audible range, what we hear, but we still use that sound to actually see something which we otherwise wouldn't see. And now you can even get it a color image and so on. Another application of a medical application of sound is actually around killing cancer cells. You could use sound to kill cancer cells. There are many papers, research papers, that will tell you the technique where you can take, it can distinguish between healthy cells and cancerous cells, and then it focuses the sound on those cancerous cells and destroys them. And some more information, and a lot of this is more signposting, so for you to perhaps do, look into this yourself. But again, sound can also be used as an epigenetic tool to alter and reprogram DNA. Now that sounds, again, it's all out there. You can reprogram your DNA. In fact, they say the DNA itself has a particular sound. Okay, so you can reprogram your DNA. So you now start to maybe understand how important, the frequent, recognizing frequencies are. They can literally reprogram DNA, for example. Here's another application of sound which you may or may not have known of, known as acoustic levitation. So you see the picture on the left, and this is well known again, acoustic levitation. So basically they create a sound transmitter which is almost shaped like a concave shape, so that it focuses the sound at a particular sort of point, and you can levitate. And they've done it with liquids like drops of water, they've done it with polystyrene balls and so on, and it's only sound alone that is keeping those objects levitating. But what you may not have realized is that Tibetan monks, they have some ancient knowledge of how you can use sound to levitate huge stones. So as it says, 19 musical instruments were set in an arc precisely 63 meters from the stone. All the monks were chanting a prayer, and I'll get on to word and chanting and the importance of that shortly, but chanting a prayer, and after 4 minutes, the stone began to sway. And this was and then they go on to say that their stone actually levitated to the top of the cliff. And part of that is because of resonance. Resonance works that way. When you resonate with the right vibrational frequencies, you amplify the energy. Remember, waves are energy carriers. Now, this was observed by Dr. Jarl, who was a Swedish scientist, and that's probably the only reason why it's even reported. Now, the physics, if you like, the fundamental physics can't explain that. You won't find it in a science textbook to say, oh yes, this is how it's done. But ancient wisdom tells you it can be done, and it has been done. And it's only because a European observed it why it's even discussed. But again, sound is much more powerful than we might just think. It really is not just about music, although music is an important part.
So, Dr. Mark,
yeah, sure.
I know. According to ancient Arabic writings about how the pyramid was built, they said that the pyramid was built literally using sound.
There you go.
Hence why it cannot be replicated today. We had a deeper, as you're saying, brother, a much more deeper understanding of sound, more than just being music and dance.
Exactly, a much deeper knowledge. And that's probably why most Western books will say they don't know how the pyramids were built, because unless you have this deeper knowledge of what you can do with sound, then perhaps some of this cannot be explained. So absolutely. Another thing is that sound is a physical waveform. It interferes with physical objects. There's a whole area called cymatics. So on the left-hand side, for example, you have something called a Chadley plate, where you make specific patterns. So you can sprinkle it with sand or salt or something of those nature. You put different frequencies in, and you get specific geometric patterns. And they're also underpinned by mathematics, so they can be explained mathematically as well. But nevertheless, it's another demonstration that sound creates pressure waves that can physically rearrange objects in a particular manner. And it can do the same thing with water. I mean, another more well-known aspect of cymatics is when you get the someone singing in a high-pitched voice, and it resonates with the vibrations of the glass to such a level that it shatters the glass. I'm sure you've probably all seen that type of thing. So again, sound is much more powerful again than what we hear. And so sound resonates with physical objects, and words, sound, and power, they resonate with people. Word is important, absolutely. The other thing is, there were some experiments done by a Japanese scientist called Masaru Emoto on water. And this is where we really start to move almost into the metaphysical state, but nevertheless, he's a respected scientist, and actually has a book called The Hidden Messages in Water. And so what he realized is that if you say certain words to water, you know that snowflakes, they say no snowflake is the same. Every snowflake is unique. Water creates many, many different types of crystals. But what Masaru Emoto realized was that he had a way of sort of fast freezing water, so freezing it very quickly. So he would say certain words to water, like put it in a Petri dish, say a particular word, and then freeze it. And what you found was that when he said nice things like thank you or wisdom and truth and so on, you get nice, symmetrical, aesthetically beautiful crystals. But if you say things like you make me sick or you fool, etc., it wouldn't form these crystals. So in other words, water has some kind of memory. But then he even went one step further and no longer said things to water. He actually just wrote it on a piece of paper and placed it on the Petri dish and froze it. So in other words, it's not just about the vibrations of the words from your voice, it's the energy behind that, behind the words, that can make a huge difference. And we see it all today. We've probably been in situations where, you know, they say someone can light up a room when they come in, you know, where they're full of energy, etc., and they don't have to say anything. And there could be another person who comes in, everybody's happy, and then it drains the energy out of the room. So it's not even necessarily about the words. You are vibrating. Your thoughts yourself will make you resonate and vibrate in a particular way and give off certain energies. Okay, so again, thoughts can even alter the physical properties around you. And it's not just words, things like prayers, for example. Prayers, you know, prayers does make a difference, because it's not just about the vibrations going out into the universe, it's the energy behind that, behind the words. And you know that if you say words in particular ways, even if you don't mean it, I mean, how often have we been greeted with a plastic smile? It doesn't, just because someone says something nice, that doesn't mean that actually the intent, you know, as Capleton says, you can see a man fierce, but you can't see him heart. You know what I mean? So it's not just about the outwardly. If you rely on just your outward senses without trying to read behind the energy behind that, then that's how a lot of us can get duped. Okay, so for example, if I said, let's say, the teacher says Mark is a fool. Okay, you know that has one meaning. But then again, if I say the teacher says Mark is a fool, now it's turned it completely around. You know, so again, how you say things can have a big difference, and the tone and it's really the energy, the intent behind the words that really you know, can't be sort of disguised. Okay, so prayers, chants, and so on, they can permeate through the universe. You are sending out energy to the universe, and that will connect and resonate. And again, what I said, when things resonate, it creates much more energy than you could do individually. So now I'm going to just not really digress, but just talk a little bit about sound, you know, sound itself in terms of electronic sound processing, because one of the things we know as a people, we've been heavily involved in sound system and sounds, and we make a lot of use of sound. Some general things, you know, bass is the lower frequencies, So from 20 to about 150, 160 hertz. So bass, you know, sometimes you wonder, why does bass make you move your waist? You know, why is it the top, you know, certain other frequencies make you maybe move your hands or your head, for example. And also lower frequencies, they travel further. So that's another reason why, you know, when you're playing at a party, if you don't want complaints from the neighbors, essentially you have to turn down the bass. It's not so much the other things, it's the bass that actually travels, because it can travel far. But in terms of sound system culture, I want to just say a quick thing, because I am key, as Garvey said, you know, commercially and enterprise-wise, we were also on top. So I just want to just sort of digress just to show you a few ways how we have innovated in sound system culture. So for example, the speakers, I'll get onto that, but the preamp, we used to design preamps, for example. The EQ, as I've said, how the EQ was set was very important to how, you know, the vibe that you create in the dance, for example. The microphone is an interesting one. James West from the US, actually, he holds the patent for about over 90% of the modern day microphone. He's a brother from the US, from Chicago, and he holds the patent for 90% of most microphones that are made. So again, we've been involved in innovating in sound in many different ways. Sound effects, again, that was coming from sound system culture, which is now sort of in general culture. But one thing I wanted to point out more specifically about innovation, I'm going to give you two examples. So on the left-hand side is an electronic design, which was designed by a sound system in the Midlands called Scientist Sound many years ago. And they you know, and that was sometimes what you would design your amp and then give it to someone to build your amps, you know, your valve amps, etc., for you. And then similarly on the right hand side, this is what's called a folded horn design for a speaker, for a bass bin, for an 18-inch speaker. And this folded horn design again was designed for Wassifer sound system in the Midlands. But the thing I really want to bring your attention to is that this design worked its way in to professional touring rigs. And now, let's say if I wanted to build a speaker exactly like that, this company would probably have a patent on that, so that I would be infringing on their patent. So what I'm really saying is, back in the day when we used to make all these designs to improve our sound, and we know why we do it, because it can throw the bass further to the back and all these sorts of things, we didn't really protect that innovation and creativity. And we know that sound is something that we work with a lot. So moving forward, I just want to reinforce a message. We've got to start protecting more of what we create, rather than leaving others to cherry pick and then capitalize on it.
So Dr. Mark, you're saying that literally companies have made millions.
Absolutely.
Based on how Soundman used to move back in the 70s, 80s and 90s.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's if you remember how you know, because back then you couldn't buy equipment off the shelf. You had to design it. You had people, you know, who would design the speaker boxes, the cabinets themselves in a particular way, because they obviously, and remember, sound system is a very competitive industry. You know, you want your sound to sound the heaviest, the fattest, and so on. So you would design your amps, your preamps, you customize your speakers, etc., your speaker cabinets. But a lot of the time you would give those to companies to build for you. And as a result, over time, they make their way into the PA system. This is nothing new. For example, if you take hip hop in America, Grandmaster Flash, he designed the crossfader. On every mixer, you have a crossfader that moves from left to right. You know, the deck change decks from left to right. But at the same time, when he designed it, he was into electronics. He did it because he wanted to mix one record to the other. Designed the crossfader, but now every mixer has a crossfader. So again, we do it all the time. We do it all the time. I could give you many examples. In fact, I'll give you a very simple example, which is not to do with music, but just to give you an example of how porous we are. And I didn't say poor, I said porous, as in, you know, accessible. Hans Sloane, the founder of the British Museum, and amongst other things, the collector, Sir Hans Sloane, he was around, I think, in the 17th century. He traveled to Jamaica. He was a collector, quote unquote collector, traveled the world collecting. He spent about 6 months in Jamaica, collected over 800 artifacts, But one particular thing was that they gave him some cocoa, you know, when you grate a cocoa, and he drank it, but he said it made him feel a bit nauseous. So they put some milk into it. He then went back when he returned to England. He then sold the rights, the patent, to the Cadbury brothers for drinking chocolate, because it was the first drinkable chocolate.
Oh,
and
no.
so imagine all that money. Every time you drink a Cadbury's drinking chocolate, Hans Sloane got that recipe from Jamaica.
No.
Sorry to break it to you, but that's how porous we are. That's why I have to give you the reality. We need to protect more of what we create. What we think is just like something we, you know, oh, it didn't take us nothing, you know, that's them. Others see, they see how to capitalize on it. And so the sister who was on earlier about financial literacy is absolutely key. Otherwise, we will never get out of this situation. Anyway, we do digress, but I hope that sort of gives you an idea of what's, you know, where we are with that. But there, again, this was just an example within sound system business where we had basically innovated so many different things, which is now in modern, you know, PA music sort of system industry. And it unfortunately, and it's a shame that, you know, how many young youths today realize or maybe recognize that their uncles or grandfather or whatever, they were innovators. They were innovators because it was sound system, so it doesn't, you know, but they were actually inventors and innovators, for example. You know, so sometimes we've got to look more closer to home for our inspiration. We, you know, we can certainly do a lot more. Okay, so another thing is just to sort of give you an idea of how you can work with waves, or how I work with waves, or how I see things in waves. So let's just talk very briefly about the DJ and the remix, okay? So as we know now, sound can be viewed as audio wave files, okay? That's what they are. They are wave files, they are waves. So again, it's the same principle. When a DJ is mixing, the beats have to match. Yeah, the frequencies, the tempos have to combine in such a way that it creates this, for want of a better word, a sweet vibration. Okay, because if it doesn't, if you're just slightly out, it just sounds off, and it will be noticed. And that's just not in DJing. Even if you're not trained in knowing about orchestras and so on, but if you hear an orchestra and somebody plays a wrong note, you will know that something's not right, because there are certain harmonics which are natural. Which naturally resonate with you, okay? I've talked a little bit about the equalizer. The equalizer basically splits up those frequencies from the low bass all the way up. Again, isolating vocals from a track is all you're doing is manipulating the waves. The vocals, they tend to be around a particular range within the frequency range, and then you can isolate those out, and that's how you might get an a cappella, you know, and things like time stretching, also fitting vocals to other rhythms, for example, mastering, rendering, all of that is really working with wave files. And that's the key point here, you know, so I very much see most of what I do in terms of a bit like Tesla, energy and vibrations and waves. So we're sort of heading, you know, we're on the home straight now, but I want to just mention something quickly about what Bob Marley said. Obviously, we know about Bob Marley and we know the kind of music he made. But when he started off, he didn't make the music exactly like how it is now. As we know, he started off with this sort of early ska and blue beat and that kind of thing. It was kind of modeling it on the American style of R&B at that time. And at one point, a journalist did ask Bob Marley, well, you know, how did you transition from that sort of faster ska kind of sound to the more sort of one-drop sound that you're known for? And this was his answer. While walking through Coronation Market, on the way to the studio, I studied the movements of the people and tuned into their vibe.
Wow.
Now,
wow.
On the one hand, so straight away, if we think about it, when we say vibe, we know we're talking about vibration, right? So in other words, he's saying he's on his way to Coronation Market. He's watching just the natural movement of the people, just the natural movement. Yeah, whether they're chopping the fruit or pushing the handcart, whatever it may be, or just walking. There's a natural tempo, frequency, vibration. So then when he goes to the studio now, he tunes his music to that vibration so that now when they hear that music, they don't have to stop and listen to it or speed up, or it's just naturally just resonates. They naturally resonate with it. Okay, so he really, in a sense, you know, somehow I would almost say he tapped into some of the natural frequencies of the heavens. By the way, as a quick aside, there is another big superstar on that photo. I'll give you like 5-10 seconds if anybody could recognize him.
Very, very unity between America and Jamaica.
There you go. There you go. Michael Jackson is there. In fact, most of the Jackson 5 are there.
Jackson 5. That's
there you
right.
go, the Jackson 5. Most of them, you'll tell by the afros and things, but they're there. So again, unity. Unity, as he says, between, we are all one family when all's said and done. I mean, I don't take it lightly when I say he tapped into the natural frequencies of the heavens. I mean, here's an example of what Bob Marley can do.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe you thought that was just a well-trained baby who just happened to like Bob Marley. What about animals? You see the other one resonating with him now?
Yes.
That's what happens. For example. So again, clearly, I say clearly, they don't necessarily understand the lyrics, but they must understand some kind of vibration behind it. And this is the point, that it's not just about the words that you say, it's the intention and the vibrations behind it that really can influence. And when you resonate for good or for bad, it amplifies things. So if you resonate on a, if you like, a lower, when I say a lower frequency, I don't mean in terms of like bass and so on, but on a lower level, then it amplifies the negative effect. Whereas if you resonate on a positive level, it will amplify that positive effect. And that's what we need to do, resonate with positivity so that we amplify it much more than we could individually. It's much greater than the sum of the parts. So I think that the final thing, I'm going to leave with a quote from Peter Tosh, which talked about word, sound, and power. And Peter Tosh, obviously part of the Bob Marley and the Wailers, was music is for awakening. Okay, if you can get the people happy and make them dance in the circumstances and the situation that they're living in financially and politically, well, you can also awaken them and make them dance to their awakening too. So we know the power of music, but let's use it for our awakening and so that we can all rise. And I think I'm gonna leave it there for now. And thanks for your attention.
Wow, brothers and sisters.
Sorry, there was one sheet I forgot.
Yes, do it, brother. Do it.
One more summary. I did have some closing thoughts, which was just because we've gone through a lot of different things, so I want to just bring it all home. Yes. Everything vibrates. Just like everything has a temperature, everything vibrates. Everything, every object, everything. Okay? Vibrations create waves. Okay? And what are waves? Waves carry energy and information. Carries energy and information. For example, African drumming, it can energize you, but it can also inform you in different ways. And secondly, and then waves affect physical objects. Remember, the human body is 70% water. We've seen what waves can do to water. Okay? We know what waves can do to water. In fact, when you start off as a baby, you're more than 90% water. So again, it definitely can affect you as well. And even thoughts alter the physical properties around us and influence the universe. So the thoughts behind the words they can also influence us. And so the only, I suppose, advice I'd say is be mindful of the energy you radiate and also the frequencies that you resonate with. And now I definitely will leave it there. Thank you.
Dr. Mark Richards, come on, brothers and sisters. Come on, man. What a night, brothers. You see, we can have liberation theology. We ain't talking about hating no one. We ain't talking about just, you know what I mean, history. Brothers, this has been revolution tonight. And we're dealing with trees, we're dealing with sound, we're dealing with health. This is what I'm into, brothers and sisters. This is what turns me on. Brother Dr. Mark, man, you delivered. You delivered tonight. In fact, you delivered the babies that you came on here pregnant, and you just pushed the wisdom out, brother. We thank you so much, man. Absolutely brilliant, brother. Absolutely brilliant. Brothers and sisters, this is Hidden Truth. Please, on the platform, put some love. I mean, I'm not going to tell you to put some love. You show the doctor how you feel. You show the doctor how you felt about tonight, man. Because to me, that just takes our liberation, our understanding to new levels of appreciation. That's what I'm saying. I love life, brothers and sisters. You know, I can't waste my time purely on negative happenings around the world. I love this. And this is what takes us closer. This is what produces unity with wisdom. Oh, wow. The chat room is still on fire, brother. The chat room is still on fire. We thank you so much. Brother Dr. Mark.
Humbled. I'm just humbled. I'm just
no,
humbled.
brother. I mean, we're humbled. We are humbled to have you with us, brother. And with yourself, Dr. Elaine, Lady my aunt. As I say, you was our keynote speaker today, brother. And I'm telling you, man, to follow Dr. Elaine and to follow Lady my aunt, you had to dig deep. And brother, no joke. I'm not saying it, brother. You smashed it. You absolutely dropped wisdom. And what you said has so much ramifications that I'm telling brothers and sisters, you need to listen to this presentation again. I'm going to put it on YouTube tomorrow. Hit my website. If you're on my WhatsApp groups, you know you're going to get it straight away. If you need to be on my WhatsApp group, I'm going to put my number right now down. Okay, you jump onto it and you get it. If you're on my mail out list, you need to listen to this. You need to listen to this again, because that tonight was serious. That tonight was absolutely stupendous. And once again, brother, we thank you. We thank you. We thank you. Time is up, brothers, but before you go, Dr. Mark, is there, I mean, you know, brother, was it Dahilia? Sterling says, brilliant wisdom with pure ones. Andrew Stevens says, brother Andrew, can you bring Dr. Mark back again? Yeah, you know he's gonna have to come back again. Glasmin, who's, I call her my personal hidden truth journalist. She says, rise, just keep rising, my king. Sister Alicia Oswald, that's a teacher's son, says replay going to be sent to all over. Yes, the replay will be available. The replay will be available, brothers and sisters. I can't stop that knowledge going out. Sister Catherine says, we are blessed ones to feed from your knowledge, Dr. Mark. Sister Cheryl McQueen says, you all were amazing, absolutely amazing. And Faye Hamilton says, this is why music moves our souls. They're asking already for part 2, brother. But me and you too, because I need you back on the platform. You're gonna decide what angle you want to take it from, brother. But with nearly 400 of us on the platform today, brother, we thank you, brother. We thank you. In your last, I know you gave us your closing words just now, brother, but I'm going to give you 30 seconds for any closing words that may be in your heart to say right now.
All I would say is, you know, as I suppose Marcus Garvey said it, knowledge is power. And so it's about connecting with others And you will know when you resonate with people, because the first thing is you got to know yourself. So it's maybe spend, you know, if we all spend time knowing ourselves, another Marcus Garvey advice, you know, to know thyself, then we will know when, let's just say, other energies try to come into our space that is not conducive to where we want to be. We will know that, we will recognize it rather than being tricked by it. And it can come in all forms nowadays. It's not just a case of pretty words or you know, or a nice suit or whatever it may be. We have to find a way of looking behind what's being said now and the energy behind that. And I hope that this talk in some way at least resonates with the audience. And based on my formula, if there's 400 on the platform and we resonated with nearly 400, then the energy that it should produce should be 400 squared. Homework.
Brother Dr. Mark, you're dropping more physics on us.
Well, you see how powerful it can be. That's my point.
Yes. Brother George, people are still typing. Brother George says, all right, that was excellent and so informative. Thank you, brother. Sister Jackie Hutchinson says, brilliant, Dr. Mark. Fantastic delivery. Michael Etenay, I think, says, thank you, Dr. Mark. Great presentation. Sonia Walker says, fabulous. So informative. John Facey says, great teaching, brother, with pure ones. Sister Pauline McKenzie says, thank you, Dr. Richards. Sister Sharon Goldson says, positive energy with pure ones. Boss One, I love my brother, Boss One. He says, sweet vibration, spot on, King Mark. Brother Carlin Fitzpatrick, who's a medical GP practitioner. He's one of our health gurus there, a qualified doctor. He says, incredible, powerful, simple, beautiful, scientific, spiritual, metaphysical. Wow, wow, wow. I mean, brother, I can't stop them from typing. You've started a tsunami now, brother. You've started a tsunami now, my king. Brothers and sisters,
thank you very much.
This is Hidden Truth Tonight. And I know the sun was out, brothers and sisters, but I'm going to say to you right now, sun or no sun, we are going to be here every Tuesday dropping knowledge, dropping wisdom, dropping science. And we're going to have great people like Dr. Mark with us, brothers and sisters. Please remember, this coming Saturday, Brother Chef Kevin, he's doing a great part to his charity work, okay, brothers and sisters. He's doing a massive event. He's linking up the US and Canada and the UK on Eventbrite, brothers and sisters. And this is going to be done in aid of our brothers and sisters in St. Vincent and the surrounding areas that were hit by the volcano. Is for the SVG Volcano Appeal. It's going to be this Saturday, the 5th of June, 6 p.m. in London, 1 p.m. back in the Caribbean, and Toronto and New York. So brothers and sisters, support Chef Kevin. He's going to be blowing it up this Saturday for a fundraiser to raise money on this. Don't forget, on Friday, brothers and sisters, we've got the Financial Commandments of Money Management. Myself, Dennis Brown, and Sister Charmaine Simpson of Black History Studies. Brothers and sisters, please don't forget next week. Oh, brothers and sisters, next week, sun or no sun, please join the Investigator. Join Lady Adele. I think Lady Adele's coming back with another blockbuster. I've got to confirm it. I think Lady Adele's back next week. But brothers and sisters, we're going to be linking up with Brother Bantu of South Africa, dealing with Pan-Africanism and Black consciousness. It's going to be a great show. Get that word out, brothers and sisters. We want a great connection between us and the motherland. Yeah, us and the motherland, brothers and sisters. And again, let's give a big shout out to Dr. Elaine Ferguson. She stole the show again. It's her first time on this platform. Just as an introduction, I will let you know, for those of you on my WhatsApp groups, those of you on my Telegram groups, those of you on my mail out list, you will soon get to find out the date that this sister comes onto the show to blow up the session. Yeah, it's got to be a powerful session. And we can't forget our brother Kwaku. Brilliant brother. We know that he does work for the British Black Music Federation and hosts of organizations that he introduced us to today. He, all the way from Ghana, we thank him for his time. And again, this brother will be coming back onto the show. Brothers and sisters, have you enjoyed tonight? Has tonight meant anything to you? Because I've enjoyed myself. We cannot forget our sister, our beloved sister, Adele, my aunt. Sister, we got to tell the sister what that sister done today when she taught using nature and using the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey, using Malcolm X, using parenting skills, using youth culture, using education. I mean, she used trees, divine intelligence to show us the whole holistic approach to our education. Lady Adele, you killed it tonight. I'm not joking. If you're still listening, Lady Adele, you smashed us tonight. That was fantastic. And we cannot forget the keynote speaker, Dr. Mark Richards, the top, to me, not just the black, he is the top UK physician, teaching us the power of word, sound, vibrations, and energy from an African meta